This is 13 Minutes. I'm Elliot Reeves. My guest today is Colin McLean. Colin, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Elliot. It's good to talk to you.
Likewise, yeah. How are you keeping just now?
I'm fine, thanks. I'm just back in the office again just now, so again making an adjustment back in environment at the moment.
Yeah, that's excellent. It's good to see you back. Definitely, that's very good. So, in order to start the conversation, what I've been doing is allowing guests to introduce themselves. So, if you'd like to start and just take a couple of minutes to let us know who you are and what you do.
I'm Colin McLean. I run an investment management business that's based in Edinburgh, and I also am an investment manager day by day as well. So that's something else I do. I write and lecture at universities on investment and behavioural finance,
Mhm.
and more recently, a couple of months ago, I joined as a non-executive member the board of Public Health Scotland.
Fantastic. That's a great introduction. How have you been managing throughout this lockdown period?
I guess the much as many have, in the sense that from March I have been working at home, so getting used to home office. I've done that in the past, so it's not entirely new for me. And enjoying a bit more time gardening, cycling as well as working. That's just this week coming to an end as I'm now in the office preparing it for a distanced and gradually gradual return back to work at some stage.
Yes, yeah. I mean, having worked previously in the asset management industry, I could imagine that this period has offered up some challenges. Let us say, what has been, do you think, the real impact from an asset management perspective?
I think there was what was going on in stock markets, which in March was pretty dreadful,
Hmm.
rebounded almost as sharply. So that's not bad. But connecting people up at home is also not so difficult in investment management. We are much more geared to cloud working. I think keeping motivation, company culture, and so on, all of that's a little bit harder, undoubtedly. And I think so. I think there's some areas of work that are less tangible but harder to preserve in that kind of environment.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, I was when the lockdown first initially hit. I noticed that Primark was one of the big businesses that was affected by it because they had no online offering. It was reported that they were losing about £600 million a month, and I recently saw that British Land had about £1 billion wiped off their balance sheet as well. So, how do you think these sorts of businesses can go about trying to recover?
I think it's going to vary quite a lot in different parts of the economy. I mean, even after we see return to work in some areas, last areas are going to be, areas hospitality and pubs in particular, and some of those things are going to be very difficult for for landlords. I think one of the changes that might come out of this is more home working, even people just adjusting that work life balance a little bit. So I think we might see therefore less footfall in city centres, property values, and even the businesses that serve them, the restaurants and pubs that are in town and in the cities, they might just see people spending a bit more time at home and doing some more working there. So I think you're right to point out that some of those trends that I think were in place beforehand are really accelerating. If you haven't had an online offering or been set up to do that, it's almost too late now to catch up.
Hmm. Hmm. Do, how long do you think it will take for things to, dare I say, return to normal?
I think going by some other economies, there's been quite sharp rebounds, in some areas. So I think there, in sectors like mine and in some areas, I think there will be, quite sharp rebounds. But there's still some fear that I think will delay maybe till the year end till we get a vaccine or a better series of treatments. I think we're going to see areas that are quite important to the economy. I mean, travel and hospitality are quite big areas as well. So we should see a rebound in some parts of the economy, but some other areas. And And then undoubtedly, a lot of there's a lot of people do casual work or short-term work and so on in those industries. So
Yes.
it's gonna hit demand a bit in the economy, for some time. I do think it'll be a couple of years before some sectors start to look more like they did last year.
Mm-hmm. In what way does Scotland differ to other countries in that regard?
I think economically Scotland's a bit worse placed. That's partly because that the tourism is 10% of the economy. A lot of things are linked to the arrival of overseas visitors. Right at the moment, I'm sitting overlooking Edinburgh Castle, and
Yeah.
the street is empty, and we're geared up really, in Scotland, to cater for those visitors. I think we're going to get more home travel. People from the UK will take British holidays, and hopefully, when it's safe, Scottish
Mm-hmm.
holidays. But I I think the big events, the festivals, and things like that are a big part of what drives and the hospitality sector. And that's quite a big part of the Scottish economy. Universities have adapted quite well, but they're all big parts of our economy, and
Mm-hmm.
less so for manufacturing. But I think it could be a challenge, just given that we're reliant on air travel a bit more to deliver some of the economics, and that I could see being a bit slow.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think we'll start to see the emergence of potentially new industries or the growth of others as a result?
I think certainly the growth of others. I mean, there's a theme developing on home being a haven, and people having spent more time at home now, investing a bit more on that, and in family, which is good too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we're going to see more of that. But I think the businesses that support the digital economy, and delivery, all of those types of businesses, and even for companies, you're reliant very much on enterprise support and on good cloud-based solutions. So
Yeah.
there's a few companies that have set up in that area that really have done well, over this challenge period, and are
Mm-hmm.
probably going to see more demand. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In what way do you think the world as a whole might change as a result of coronavirus?
Um, I, I think we may just be seeing some signs now that it's been a big opportunity for bigger government, for government to step in and solve some problems. But I think the jury's out on how well that's going. And there's the potential
Yeah.
for something of a breakdown in trust, if that you know it's always difficult to make decisions at the time, but they'll be analysed with perfect hindsight, and how things
Yes.
go. So we may not quite see how people are going to judge the whole thing until we, get into next year and judge it all. But it has shown that some aspects of our social economic life haven't been working so well, and there's a pattern from history, from the Depression and other times in history, across a lot of different countries, that um, these sort of big events and crises, they change um, social outlook and politics for a generation. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we're going to find that unfold, and people may want to see government step in some areas, more support in society, more tax for some companies don't pay a lot of tax but have been helped through this,
Yeah.
and people may start thinking a bit more about that. And the governance model in companies, all the company boards and so on, and hasn't made companies resilient in the way that we maybe hoped that we're going to be resilient. So there's
Mm-hmm.
a pile of things that people are going to want fixed over the next few years, and they probably like the way the environment is now. It's looking better, and so on. And that may accelerate change, particularly if the government starts taking stakes in companies and bailouts. It may be able to direct what's going on with carbon use and some of the other areas that should change.
Hmm. What sort of change would you like to see personally?
I think I wouldn't say an argument overall for bigger government, but certainly I think companies have to take some ownership of their own resilience, and I, and it maybe we have to reassess the safety net in society, the resilience that we build in. I would like to certainly see more production and sourcing at home, shorter supply chains. I think to see, no, I'm not just talking manufacturing production, but food production and those things. I think
Yes.
if we can really reinvigorate a more, circular, shorter supply chain economy that's seeing the potential we have domestically, and maybe not flying avocados for thousands of miles, but actually
Yeah.
see what we're growing in Scotland. It would be good.
Exactly. Yes. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious as to what your general view on something like a universal basic income might be.
It's something that we are definitely going to see explored much more. I mean, I know it's on the agenda of some governments to look at in some
Hmm.
form, and I think it depends how it's afforded and
Okay.
incentivized. So, there's been attempts in some other countries and areas, Alaska less successfully, and so
Mm.
on. So I think it's right that we look at that now and think a bit more about it, but we should definitely learn from where it has been applied.
Mm. Good answer.
You know.
What advice or insight would you give to anyone that was having a difficult time right now?
Um, yes, it's fine for people perhaps with access, to outside, but not if you're in a flat in the city, or certain types of working, or perhaps furloughed. It's very difficult.
Hmm.
I think to keep it, as real and connected as possible, people really have to try and use what they can of phone calls and social media and online connections, Skype and other things, and try and connect with family and friends, and perhaps try and see that the extra time that they might have could develop themselves personally, develop a skill or some other learning
Definitely.
or ambition they've got. So, in some way that they feel they're coming out of this stronger and better, out of this. So,
Hmm.
I think it's important not to lose sight of those sort of goals amidst what's a pretty difficult time for some people.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent answer. Colin, where can people find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram at Colin McLean One, Twitter Colin McLean, and also I write on our blog site, which is the Value Key as well. So,
The Value
yeah.
Key. Fantastic. Well, it's been a great chat, Colin. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, I hope to catch up again with you soon.
Hope so. Thank you.
Take care, Colin.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thanks.